What's the most obscure feature in Affinity Photo? Probably the undo brush, but it's one of the most powerful features of Affinity Photo, PC or Mac. So where's the undo brush? Well, you can find it over here in the Tools panel, just here. Just go there, hover over that and select that. As soon as you do that, you'll see all the variety of options, blend modes, opacity, etc. If you can't see it, what you need to do is go to View and Customize Tools. So select that. Slightly disconcerting when you use this, that it joins it together. So when you got there, you can see there's the Tools panel and there's all the tools. And you can see you've got loads and loads of great tools. And there it is, Undo Brush. So Undo Brush tool, all you need to do is drag it over here. So just drag it and place it there. And there it is. Now, you can have 5, 10, 15 undo brushes. Obviously, I don't want that, but you can do that. And you can see it there. As soon as you selected it, just apply. The undo brush can be used with anything. In this very basic example, go to Layer and New Layer. Go to the Gradient tool and apply a basic gradient from top to bottom. Once you've done that, you'll notice here you've got Create Fill. That's in the History panel. You can find the History panel in the Window menu. Now, if you're using version 1, it will be in the View menu and Studio. So it's slightly different location now. So you go down to the bottom and you've got this Create Fill. Well, you can see at the side, on the left side, you've got all these little markers and they look exactly like the undo brush. So down the undo brush, you can see identical. To make certain you can use it, simply click, just select that one and you see all these ones are slightly grayer. This one slightly brighter as soon as you click it, and you can always click another one instead. We'll just click that one. So click there on the left and this will be the thing you use, this gradient. So at this point, I can now remove this gradient. So I'm just going to delete it. So just go to the Move tool and delete it. It's no longer there. So I'm just going to create another layer. So Layer and New Layer, but you'll still notice that that's still highlighted, that Create Fill. It would be nice if it marked it probably a little bit better, maybe with a blue marker or something, just clearly, or green or something, so you could highlight it, but it doesn't. But it does have that. Now what you can do, if you want to apply that gradient that you've just used, just simply go over here and select the undo brush and it will use that there. And it will use the current brush and you can use any of these brushes. So I'm just going to select, say, this one. So go to the brushes and you can find that again, Window menu or the View menu in Studio if you're using version 1. So with that selected, that's going to be the brush stroke that's going to be used. The source will be this gradient you applied. So you can just apply it. So let's just add it now. And as you do that, you can see what happens. You can see you got that the white area of the gradient there all the way through to the black. So you can actually apply that gradient as a brush stroke. So you can see now if I apply it, so I go down there, and of course there's some variation, that's part of the brush, or I could select a different brush, so select that one. And you can see again, it uses that gradient. So it was white at the top. As I drag down, you can see it gets darker. So it's a great way of applying all kinds of lovely, colourful designs. Because the gradient could be anything. Now the gradient I used was a default gradient, but you could of course use a multicoloured gradient or combinations of gradients, and they would also be used as the brush stroke. So you can apply it down like that. And of course you can modify the brush. So you can always tweak this brush and use it in thousands of ways. You can also modify the size. So the width, go up here and maybe increase it to make it 400. And as you do that, you can see you get more of the gradient. But you'll notice along here, there's a lot more options. And I'm going to go through those in this tutorial. Things like the blend mode, really useful. Creates great effects. Symmetry, even better. And you've also got more. So you can change the brush as well. You can tweak it to create even more amazing designs. You can also use the undo brush with all kinds of other sources, such as patterns. I've got this gradient I created earlier, and I can turn this into a pattern layer. Just simply go up to here layer, and then new pattern layer from selection. As long as it's selected, it can be turned into a selection and pattern layer. So now I can resize this. Now you can see you've got this cut through. I don't want that. So I'm just going to go with mirror so it's seamless. Top left, click mirror. And now what I can do, I can squeeze this in all kinds of ways, but I'm going to make it very, very intense, just linear. And I can rotate it as well. So I'm just going to go with that. You could, of course, go with any kind of design. These could be super colourful, all kinds of distortions, deform, etc. can be added as well. But once you've got that, what you can do, you can go up here. Exactly the same as before with the undo brush. Just click this one. So you could click any of the others as well, perfectly reasonable. But then they would obviously be at different stages. So now that's been selected as the source. I can remove this. So pattern layer, I can delete that. Now I can leave this and I can delete it. I've deleted all the layers. If you go to the undo brush and try and use it now, it doesn't work. So if I select a brush over here, try and apply it, for some weird reason, it doesn't create a layer. Most brush tools create a layer. This one does not appear to do it. So you have to do that for it. So go to layer and new layer. So once you've got that, you've actually now got something to work with. And you can see now with the brush tool, and I'm using sprays, but you could use any of the brushes. Doesn't have to be just sprays, there's lots of them. Now you can use very colourful ones as well. There's a whole range of different ones here. Like I've got here text, all those sorts. They work, but they don't add the colour. They just work adding it in an unusual way. So you might find that these ones are much more convenient, spray, ink, etc. And you can just apply it. And you can see the result there. So you can apply it just very locally. And that's the great thing about the undo brush. You can apply very locally. So you can go here, and if you want, you could add maybe blurs. And you don't have to just keep it at that position. You can go back here. You can say, oh, I don't want that. Actually, let's just undo it. So I can undo very quickly, just simply go back and all the way through. But also I can go with this transform, I can add, say, a blur to this. So let's just go filter and blur and box blur or Gaussian blur. So you can just do that and you can see the result there. Click apply and then you can then use that. That's another option. So just use, you'll notice this blur is slightly odd. You might prefer to rasterize the layer. So you can always do that as well. So layer, and you can go down here and rasterize. So it's rasterized and now you can apply other effects. So filter, distort and say twirl. And you can create this sort of design and change origin point, click apply. And you can use that as the source. All kinds of different sources can be used. So with this twirl, again, I can now, once I've done this, I can delete it. But again, I have to remember to create a layer. So layer and new layer, go to the undo brush and apply. And you can see now, you get this result. So literally millions of different designs can be created very quickly using this. But you can, of course, this undo brush, this layer is a layer. It's a pixel layer, just as any others. So you can just go to filters, and you go to distort and apply a twirl to that. So you can see what the result of that. So you can create all kinds of really extreme twirl designs and click apply. And you can still add to this, of course, with the undo brush. So just, if you think, oh, you know what, let's just go around the spiral and just add all the way around. And you can distort it again, of course, and you can follow the spiral around like that. And again, go to filters and repeat twirl if you wish to create even more designs. You can also use the undo brush in Affinity Photo with text. So I'm just going to go over here and artistic text tool. Just create some text. I'm going to go with the word text, but you could use anything. And you could, of course, also use the frame text, perfectly reasonable. Now I've got absolutely huge text there. I don't want it that big, but I'm just going to drag it over here and you can see now the word text. It's in blue, but you of course can change the color. I'm just going to, again, with that selected, just change the color, maybe go for some red, select that, and then let's go for green. So you can see now I've got slightly more colorful text. I'm going to use that as a source. And again, history panel. Go to the history panel and click here. Now, if you change your mind, of course, you can always change your mind and set it to somewhere else. Perfectly reasonable. Maybe apply effects as well. So you could go to filters, distort this design, maybe blur it, maybe use it as a pattern design as well. Perfectly reasonable. So you've got this text. Anything that's here can be now used with the undo. So I've got this. I'm just going to delete it now. Or I could reposition it, perfectly reasonable. I could use it with the design. But I'm just going to go with this. I'm just deleting it. And now I've got no layers. And as before, if you try and use the undo brush with no layer, it doesn't create a layer. Not certain why it doesn't, but it doesn't. So again, go there, undo brush. So say, just apply it and you'll see what happens. Nothing. That's what happens. Doesn't appear to create anything. Doesn't create a layer, does nothing. So layer and new layer. Now with this, what you can do, you can apply it and you can see now as you hover over, and I'm using one of the sprays and splatter brushes. You don't have to use that. You could use ink, any of the other brushes. There's a whole range of different brushes that are available. Just happen to be using that one because it looks more effective than others. You can see what happens. So I just apply it. Now, this is a pixel layer. It's not text. You can't edit it. It'd be nice if you could, but you can't. But if it was a live effect, it'd be brilliant. And you can see I've applied it there. The T there, and I've got the X there. And you don't have to put, and that's the great thing about the undo. It means you can create text that's very, very loosely applied. And of course, I haven't even touched upon the other features here of opacity, flow, etc. I'm going to do that later in the video. But you can just apply it just loosely. I'm using an art pad and pen. And you can see I've got my text there. And now, let's just move that layer out. Always the way with these things, the layer, the panel gets in the way. There's one feature that I think could be improved in Affinity Photo. It would be nice if it sort of like disappeared or moved away when you're going over there. However, you've got this applied. And then, well, I can apply some effects. So go to filters, go to blur, say Gaussian blur, and I can blur it. You can see the result there. Click apply. And now, undo brush is still active, still using that text source. So you can now apply it again. So again, you can just apply it, just subtle touches. So you've got really nice blurry text to work with. And you can just maybe touch it very slightly. So you've got this sort of like raindrop effect or sort of mottled effect applied to your text like that. So that's a great sort of way of creating. Now it's just a layer. And you can see as a layer, what you can do, of course, with a layer is you can move it. You can resize it. So you can reposition it, angle it, rotate it, duplicate it. So let's just do that. So I can duplicate it a couple of times like that, create all kinds of different text effects. And then I can actually go to layer and I can then merge visible. So that all those will be merged into a pixel layer, just one single layer. You've still got the other layers as well. But what you can now do, you've still got that text source still selected, which you can use the brush, and you could use different ones. Let's just select a different brush. Just move that there. And now apply. And there's the undo brush, select that, and again, just go there. Now, it's still applying exactly the same position. And you can see the text, that word text appearing there on top of that text you created earlier. So you can build up all kinds of different text designs just by combining it that way using this undo brush. You can just apply it there. And again, if you want, filter, repeat Gaussian, or maybe distort and deform. Always a favourite of mine. You always distort the design. Now, click apply. One feature that's slightly odd in Affinity Photo with deform is you have to select the move tool before you actually work with it, because it doesn't seem to work if you're using the brush tool. I don't know why. So filters, again, distort and deform. And then you can add the pins. And then you can move them and manipulate them. And you can see the result of that. So you can click apply. And again, you can go back, go to the undo, and again, apply it. Just add it And again, you've still got the opportunity to modify the blend modes, normal, opacity, reduce it down, make it fainter, or use a different one. So let's just go and select, let's go for pencils. So pencils, you can create, let's just select pencil there, and you can see then as you apply it, and there's the pencil effect, just added there. You can see the line applied for the T and X. So literally thousands of different text designs can be created using the undo brush, using this approach. And of course you can use this as a source. You don't have to continue using what you created earlier. This could be the source as well. So again, just click here. As long as this has been marked or checked, whatever you want to call it. With the undo brush, you can simply open a document. So File and Open. I've just opened this. There's no history at all at the moment. You don't need anything. Simply here, just do a very basic act of perhaps go to Filters, Blur and Gaussian Blur and apply it with nothing. So absolutely nothing. Click Apply. As long as you've got something to work with. So simply got here, make that the history point. So history state. Now, just delete this picture. Just remove it. And you can see now you've got delete background there, but you can still use the undo brush. Go here, you need a layer, of course. So layer and new layer. Go to the undo brush, select that. And with that, you can apply. Exact same as before. Let's just go again to the brushes. I've got a load of brushes here. Pencil's probably not the best one, but spray and splatter's always good. Reliable tool to use. So 128 and then apply. And what you can see, you've got the original image. And you can do that with anything. Any image you bring in, you can use it as a great brush design. So if you make certain you've got a layer, I've just deleted the layer by accident. So always need the layer. When you undo, of course, you undo all the way through and then end up deleting that one. So select that one and then apply that. And you can see with that brush, you've still got the original image. You can see the effect there. And of course, it's a layer. So as a layer, you can move it around, just drag it around, reposition it, hold down the Alt Option key and duplicate that design. So you can create some very abstract designs simply by creating multiple layers. Hold down the Alt Option and drag to duplicate those layers. Now I'm just going back to this original one. As before, it's a layer. And as a layer, you can go to Effects. So click here. And I'm going to go with 3D. So let's just turn 3D on. You can see there 3D. Make sure you put a reasonable profile. I think that profile is always the best one. Always seems to work nicest. Don't know why, but that one is that one I'm going to use. So close that. And I've got that. Now you could add, of course, drop shadow. You could add other effects as well. Outlines as well is a great one. So with this, you can still continue to use the undo. So you can see, oh, let's just add it more. And it all will be still applied with that 3D. And you can apply it again and again, or maybe go and use a different brush. So let's just go for inks. Always select it. Some of these inks ones work quite unusual. I always think that they're quite effective, and you can always just drag like that nice across, and you can see the 3D effect. Again, this is using the undo brush. And you can create all kinds of abstract designs like that. You just stretch it across there. And now, of course, what you can do, it's a layer, it's still exactly the same as it was before. You can then maybe rasterize it. So go to Layer and Rasterize. Because you've applied a layer effect, obviously the 3D or bevel, whatever you've used, make certain you deselect that and click Rasterize. So you've got this layer, and then you can then hold down the Alt Option key and duplicate that, and you can see then you've got this lovely three-dimensional effect that's dragged from there. Or you could rotate it. That's another option. And that's from that original source image, which so you can build up very complex designs. And of course, I haven't even touched upon the fact you could use blend modes. So just go here, overlay, lighten, and so on. or apply filter effects. So here you've got distort, deform. Again, make certain you select the move tool. It is a weird feature with that one. Filters, distort and deform. You need to select the move tool and then you can distort it. And you can see the result distorted there. And you can still, of course, apply and add your undo to this as well. So if you want to, still continue with the undo. So click here and then you can drag on here and add your... Now, you'll notice the 3D's gone. There's no 3D on this layer. You can always add it again. Just click Effects, go to 3D and then add that. And so on. You can see you can build up some very unusual using just a simple basic image that can be combined with all kinds of brush strokes. And that's not even touching upon features like symmetry, using opacity, using blend modes here with the brush as well. And that's for later. The undo brush can also be used to create localized effects. So you've got this design. Now if I just go and apply a filter, I just go to filters and distort and deform or mirror. Let's just go with mirror. And I can apply the effect and you can see the effect is applied to the entire image, which is fine if that's what you want. So click apply and you can see now the result of that. Well, I like that central bit. I really like that central flower. Well, I can go over here and again, make certain you click here, the little left side of that entry for the history. And the entire image is then stored as the history source. Well, now with the history panel, again, very useful, or just go to undo. I can go back to the original image. So I've got the original image there. So now go to the undo brush. So just click here, undo selected, and I can use any brush stroke. Now you want probably to use a very basic one. So maybe basic, very handy. Got a range of different brushes, say a nice soft one there. So 128, and I'm going to just apply it. And you can see actually it's got a nice little preview, which is very, very useful. I'm just going to increase size a bit and you can see the result there. As you hover over, as you hover around there, you can see what you're going to get. So if I apply it now, I can just apply it like that. I can just see as I go around and I can just go all the way around there. And of course, it's probably best to make certain you go around the edge first. Now, obviously, you're going to get some of the original image that's slightly outside. Now, you could, of course, also apply this to a layer. That's another option. So now I've got that design. I can just apply that. And you can see there, I've now got that lovely flower design right in the centre. That was the result of the mirror. But it's only the result I wanted, which is just that design at the centre. I could have done the other way. I could have gone outside or maybe around the edge. A load of options there. Again, you can always, as just mentioned, just go back there. And with that, I can go and apply it again. But this time I'm going to use a layer. So go to Layer and New Layer. And again, you can see as I hover over here, you can see the design. So I'm just going to use exactly the same area that I created before. And I'm just doing it very loosely. You could obviously take a bit more care to go around, make certain you don't go too far over the edge. But there's the design. And I'm just going to apply it there. So that nice central bit there. And you could use any brush. I've just used that brush because it's the nicest one, I think, for this sort of design. Well, it's a layer. So this layer, you can see I can move it. I can reposition it. You can also see I've obviously gone over the edge a bit. But also, it's a layer that I can go to here, layers. I go to effects. So click there, go for 3D, and you can see then you get this 3D effect. And you can modify direction, change profile again. I think that one always works the best, and close. And of course I can then duplicate that design or resize it. So I can just simply drag that, hold down the Alt or Option key and duplicate that design. So I can create lovely petal design from that mirror effect but instead of using the entire image, I can just use this part. Now I'm just going to remove that. Now I've got back to the original image. So I'm just going to select that again. So make certain I'm using that. And I can do the same, say, with a filter like, let's go to blur. Blur's always a good one. So Gaussian blur. I'm just going to blur the image. So that's all blurred there. And I can then add in, again, use the undo brush, add in here. Now you can see one issue with this. It just applies it solid. It's really very strong. Now I might not want that. And that's the great thing along here. You've got the control bar, you've got opacity. So you can reduce it. You don't have to go full on. There's also flow as well. But you can see if I do that with a lower opacity, I can just apply it very subtle. But you've got that blurry effect. But you've still got the original image coming through. And of course, if I just keep applying it over and over again, eventually you get back to the original image. And of course, I could use blend modes. So I could just undo that again. Let's just go apply on top again. And let's go for lighten. So you can see lighten. And again, I can change the opacity now. Let's push that up a bit. And you can see just subtle. And I can apply it to certain areas. But I can also do it the opposite way. I can do it the reverse. So instead, let's just go back here. And instead of using the image, I can use the Gaussian blur. So I apply this Gaussian blur. I can then just go here to Gaussian blur. But I can still go back. And this is the key thing. Make certain you just select it. Don't click on there. So if you, as soon as you do that, that's what you get. That's what I want. But make certain you don't click on there. What you want to do, if you want to save the history source, is you click to the left. Now you can apply a localized effect of the blur this time. So if you want to, very subtle, and of course it is very, very subtle. Opacity's low, let's just push that up a bit. Instead of lighten, let's go for overlay. Or let's go for normal. Let's just go back to normal. And you've got that blur effect. And you can see then you can apply a localized blur just to certain parts of the image. Maybe you want to apply a blur just particular, maybe there's a face or something you want to blur out. You can use this approach very quickly just to blur out a face, very localized. And it's so much easier to apply using that than maybe using a selection, which you of course can do. You can see you can apply it again. You can go to over and over again to that. And you create all kinds of common. And again, you've still got blend modes. So you could always go for difference instead. You can see the effect there. You can create some very interesting, unusual distortions and color effects just by using that. There's a lot of opportunity for some interesting designs simply by using, say, lighten, or, and then you can go, you can see the result of lighten on top of that difference. And again, you can see that creates a very sort of ghostly, surreal effect with that blur. Instead of just your standard Gaussian blur, you've now got this sort of, and of course, you could always reduce the size down. So let's just reduce the size down. And you can see, again, you get these sort of streaks of strands that are coming out like that. And that's the Gaussian blur. It's a localized effect applied using a brush stroke. Nice effects, which of course, like I say, you can use selections, but I think it would be very tricky to do selections like this. So I think it's a nice sort of approach just using that. And I'm just going to go with, say, difference again. Again with that, and you can see the effect of difference to create, again, some very unusual. And that isn't even touching on symmetry and mirror and all those settings as well. Got an image here, and I can use the undo brush to apply adjustments or color effects to an image. So say you want to use this design, but I want some parts of it to be black and white. Now again, you could use selections, you could use a complex way of doing that, perfectly reasonable. You can use adjustments, you could use masks, perfectly reasonable as well. But you can also use the undo brush. So at this design, and I'm just going to go for layer, down to new adjustment layer, and I'm going to use black and white. It really stands out, but you could use gradient map, super colourful. So black and white, and you can see the effect. Now it's applied to the entire layer. And you could use blend modes, all those sort of things, but I'm just going to go with the default setting. At this point, I can go over here to the history panel, and that's the key thing with the undo, is that you select that. So go down here and make certain you click here. You can see it's highlighted, and that's what it's going to use. But I don't want it now, the black and white. I'm just going to remove it. So I'm just going to go back to the original image before that layer was added. So you can see now in your layers panel, you've got no black and white. But what you can do, you can use the undo. So undo, and you can use any brush. Again, I'm using basic because it stands out, makes it easier than maybe using sort of ink or any of the others. Let's just apply it. And you can see already straight away you've got that little preview of the brush. So I can increase the size. Let's make it 410. And it's a localized effect, so I want this here to be black and white. So I can just run over this area, obviously loosely, and I can just turn it into black and white very quickly using this approach. So black and white, all the rest is color. Now, of course, you could do that with selections. Perfectly reasonable, but I'm going to use just that. So maybe I might decide, oh, I don't want that. Let's just undo. Maybe I want the other area outside here, this left side, to be there. So I can just apply it like that. Just apply the brush stroke, and I can apply the brush stroke around here. So I can get just that central part to be colour. So if I decide, well, I don't want black and white, I can use any of the other adjustments. So let's just go for layer and new adjustment layer. And there's a lot of them. So gradient map, it's always a good one. So gradient map, very intense, very extreme. You can modify the gradients in numerous ways to create amazing, colourful designs. But I'm going to stick with this, the default. But you could use any other adjustment, gradient map, of course. So once you've got that, exactly the same as before, go to the history panel, go here, and you can see you've got add gradient map adjustment. That's the one I'm going to use. But you of course could create 10 different adjustment layers. Just make certain you select the one that's right at the bottom. That's the key thing. So click there, and again, it's highlighted there. You can see it. Now, I wish it was clearer. Maybe they could make it bigger if you select it. I don't know. I always think that's slightly hard to see. But I'm just going to go with that. And again, I'm going to go back to the mirror. So just simply, or you could just delete the layer. That's another option. So now I've got this gradient map stored away, and you can see just by hovering over here. Now I could, instead of using basic, use inks. So let's just go for inks, and I'm just going to go for this one. And change the size. Let's just make it 390. And again, you can see the preview. And you can see as I do that, apply that ink brush. It's just applied just to that area that I want to be green, where the gradient map. And I can undo that and apply it different areas, or use a different brush. Again, use maybe oils instead, something like that, to create an oil effect. Very quick, rapid gradient map applied like that, instead of to the entire image. And of course, you've got other options as well. So you've applied it like that. Well, you can always turn around and say, oh, got blend modes. So you can go to the blend modes. So let's just go to the blend modes, and let's just undo. Let's just remove that now. Don't have to, of course, but I'm just going to just get rid of it and apply it again. But this time I'm going to apply it with difference. And you can see now you've got the gradient map applied like that, which may or may not be effective. Obviously, but you've got a vast number of different options. You can, of course, modify the brushes in numerous ways, and you have got lots of brushes to choose from. So you can always go for sprays. So you can select that and apply, and you can see the gradient map applied again, or go for a different blend mode, maybe lighten and apply it like that. All kinds of different designs. And of course, as before, you can always apply it to a layer. So layer and new layer. And now you've got this effect. You can still see the design. Obviously, you've got the gradient map effect and the actual image itself. And you can do it there. It's just a layer. So you can see now you've got your layer there and you can reposition it. You can apply effects to it, distort it. So it's great for creating some very interesting texture designs, which of course you can then flatten this. You've still got that original mirror effect. You can see the design there as you run around there, but it's got the gradient map, but it's not just your standard gradient map. And then you can just go layer and merge visible. So you've got this pixel layer to work with and you can modify it in numerous ways. Or again, you can apply, again, go to the undo brush and you can apply to that as well. Again, just apply it very rapidly to that design. So literally thousands of designs can be created with adjustments and also with the undo brush. You can also fade the undo brush. So let's just create a layer. Need a layer, so layer and new layer. And then go to the swatches. And I'm just going to add a swatch. So gradient tool. And I'm just going to select this one and apply. It could be any gradient. And it doesn't have to be a gradient. It could be any sort of image. So once you've done that, you can now apply a filter effect. So filter, and I'm going to go for distort and twirl. Twirl's always a very dramatic one, so let's just apply it here and use radius, and you can change origin points. I'm going to go for something pretty dramatic like that. And then click apply. Now I'm going to use the spray and splatter brushes with my undo. So I've got this design. The key thing is, I don't want the twirl. I want it before the twirl. That's the key thing. I mean, I could select the twirl, but I want to use this as the, so just click here. That's the key thing, just before it, or anywhere else before it, of course. So once you've done that, you can now apply it. So again, go down to the undo and then select one of the brushes. Now I'm just going to go for this one. You could go for any of them and apply. Now I'm not using the blend mode here, so I'll just undo. I'm just using normal, not changing anything here. I'm going to go with basic brush. So just apply it, and you can apply it like that, right across the image, maybe just a certain area, perfectly reasonable, but I'm just going to apply it like that. So once you've done that, what I can now do is use the undo. So layer and fade undo brush. So you get slight confusion of fading, undoing. Basically it's an undo effect, but fade. So fade, and you can, if you want, of course, fade it completely. So you can see there's no brush applied at all. Or you can go the other way, it's full on. Now I'm just going to put it down here. Now it seems slightly odd, but put the 0 to 0 here. Now use the blend modes. And you can see as you go through the blend modes, you can see the effect. And I'm going to go with difference. You could go for any of the others, of course. I mean, there's a lot, that one's always quite good for all kinds of very intense designs, but difference. And again, I could modify that, but I'm going to go with 0. So apply. So you've now got this very unusual effect. But you can, of course, go back and you can then go here and select this, perfectly reasonable as well. Or maybe distort this design. So let's just do that. So filters, and again, I could use repeat, perfectly reasonable, but I can go for distort and twirl. And you can see it's very intense now. You can also modify the angle, and I can change the radius, as well as change the origin point. I'm just going to go for about there, but you can vary it. Do exactly the same as before. Just go here, make sure you don't click the fade. What you need to click is here. So click there, make certain that's highlighted, and then you can apply the brush again. And now you're getting obviously the one that's got the difference applied to this, and you can see there. Now you can undo that and apply it again. If you're not happy with it, always do that, because the fade is just going to be applied to that brush stroke, just that one. Not if you do 2 or 3 more, it's just going to be applied just to the last one. So just apply it like that. Now you can go to layer, exactly the same as before, fade, undo brush, and it's going to fade that last brush stroke. Fade, undo brush, and again you can see the result of that. You can go backwards and forwards. So at 0% and normal you can see the effect, but you can also run through again different, or overlay, or lighten, or screen. And you can just try and maybe divide. That's quite an effective one as well. Or average or negation. I'm just going to go with, say, add, and you can see that. But of course you can continue to use the fade, you could continue to do undo to build up all kinds of textures, and you don't need to apply it just with these ones. Of course, sprays and splatters. They are my favourites, but there are other brushes. And you can also apply it on a layer. So exactly the same as before. Let's just go back. Let's go all the way back. So I've got this design. This time I'm going to create a layer. So layer and new layer. So any effect is going to be applied there. So again, make certain you click here. This is just before the twirl effect. And now undo brush and apply again. And you can see the result of that applied. But that's on a layer. So on a layer means I can add effects. Also I can fade it. So let's just go to, now always apply the fade straight away, because as soon as you do something else, that fade is gone. So you need to make certain, now I don't know if that's in every single case for every single thing, but I guess that most actions that you do will result in that fade being changed to the other. So go here again, fade, undo brush. So if you want to use it again, simply go down there, set the fade and go for difference. And now this time you'll see the result isn't good because obviously it's on a layer. But you can still use this fade. But obviously the blend modes are not so effective. But of course it's on a layer, so you could actually use the layer as well. So let's just click apply. And you can see there, you've got the pixel layer, but this time you can go to effects, go for 3D, and you can then add, say, radius, change that, gain profile. Probably the second one is always the best one, creates a lovely sort of texture design, and close. So you can see now, and it does take a few seconds to process. It's not instantaneous, you see it build up. But then you've also got the option, it's still working on it, even just by simply moving over there, you can see it's just changing. It's very disconcerting at times. And then go here, and you've got the blend modes this time, so this time you can go with difference. So the result using on a layer clearly looks different. And again, you can see it's still processing it. But you can then distort this layer. So filters, and again, distort, maybe deform, perspective, ripple. All these can be used as well to modify that layer design. And that's using the undo brush with layers. So it is slightly different, but it still does create some interesting designs, which of course it is a layer. And as a layer, you can hold down the Alt or Option key and drag and duplicate. So you can build up quite a complex design of, and then resize it as well. Don't have to keep it, of course, the same size. You can move it around, rotate, just drag down there to build up a real quite unusual painted design using the undo brush. You can use the undo brush with gradients, anything, type, images. Well, I'm just going to use it with this gradient. And I'm going for a radial design. The reason, because I'm going to use in Symmetry. There's lots of options you've got when you go to the undo brush. So there's the undo brush, select that, or this one, select it, and you can see you've got this design now. The center is not in the best position, so let's lock that, release it, and position it dead center. You can see the symmetry here. This is all the options you've got when you use the undo brush. There's lots of them. You've got here blend modes as well, but symmetry is one useful one. You can remove it or bring it in simply by checking this. So I'm going to go with 8, mirror, and now the position is just right. It's just with the gradient here, and I'm going to go with lock. Now I'm going to delete it. But before I do that, I'm just going to click here, just so I can set the undo brush source. So click there, again, highlighted, that's the key thing, needs to be highlighted so it's stored away. So now I'm just going to remove this and delete. Well, once I've done that, I need a layer, so let's go to layer and new layer. And again, go back to the undo, and you can see you've got the symmetry back again. Whenever you go on or off it, if you've got symmetry on, it will just reappear. And now, if you apply it like that, and you can see the design there. You can create all kinds of beautiful designs. Now, you don't have to apply it on just a single layer. You could go like this, you could apply it, so you can create a lovely quick design like that. Then you can go to layer, and you can say new layer again, and apply it again. Now you can also just vary the width, so you can just change that, change opacity, change blending modes. So you can just create, but it's still using the same original source. Now it's a pity that there is no feature for storing undo sources, like the clone source, where you could sort of build up a whole load of great sources to use. But it doesn't work that way. You've only got one undo source. You can see that design. Now that's applied to a new layer, and I can do the same. Layer and new layer again, and apply it again. Each time, separate layer. And you can see, now you can of course change the symmetry. You don't have to keep it 8. If you're going to do something like this, you've got 8. Probably the next thing best is go with 4. You go with some 5 or something, it's going to look a bit odd. You can see then you've got that design. Now, at this point, as it's on a layer, you can add layer effects. So you can give some depth to it as well. So go here and make certain you've got that layer selected, or that layer, doesn't matter. Go to effects, click there, and go with 3D. So 3D, you can then see you've got this lovely 3-dimensional effect. So any brush stroke you use with the undo, this one, undo brush, applied to this layer, will still have that 3D effect. All the others will still remain without. So you've got this lovely layer of 3D. Sort of like gives it a paint effect. Very, very nice paint effect. And you can see create all kinds of unique designs. And again, you can always go to the other layer and apply a different effects. Just go down there, click there, and maybe go for 3D, or maybe select outer shadow. They don't have to be the same. So go to outer shadow, set that, and set that, and close. And of course, when you've got that selected, again, go to the undo brush and apply there. And that will have the shadow effect. So as soon as you apply that, you can see as you go out, that's got the shadow design. And you can create infinite number of these lovely radial symmetry effects using the symmetry feature of the undo brush. You can use the undo brush with shapes. Now, when you use them, they're going to be pixels, pixel layer. So I've got a nice colourful design here, just using cog tool with multiple cogs with different gradients in them. But now if I come over here and I can set an origin point for the source material, for the undo. So there is duplicate and transform. Now I'm going to delete them. So just delete all of those ones. So with them all deleted, what I can now do is I can apply the undo brush, but I need a layer. Exactly the same as before. So layer and new layer. So undo brush, and I can just apply them just like this. I just apply them as you see that. You get the first shapes back. They're not vectors, of course, now, so you can't resize them. Though it's a layer, so you can just apply it like this. You can see the design very roughly, like that. And I can move it, I can reposition it. I can use blending modes, but I can also use blend modes with the undo brush. So let's just apply it again. So this time, got a pixel layer here. Need the pixel layer, undo brush, and I'm going to apply it very rapidly, just like that. And I've got that design. Now I can go to the blend mode, And I can go for difference. Now it doesn't change what I've just drawn. So that still remains the same. Now I can apply the undo brush again. This time it's applied using difference. Now of course I can apply it all in one go. Makes a difference as well. So let's just apply that. What you can also do, of course, there's loads of other blend modes. I can go for, not difference, but maybe go for hard mix. Hard mix is a great one, so just add that. And as I do that, you can see what happens. It blends there. You get that lovely hard mix effect. Also, of course, I can apply effects to it. So I can go to filters again. It's just a layer that I can apply effects to. And I'm going to go with, let's go with Gaussian blur, basic one. So you get a nice colourful design like that. Again, use the undo. This time you can see mixes nicely with the hard mix, or maybe go with difference again. And you can see the result of that. Now, of course, I'm using that brush, using inks, but I can use any of them. My favourite one, spray and splatters. Let's just go and apply that. Now, as soon as you do that, you'll notice what happens. It puts it back to normal. And also you get wet edges. Quite a lot of those, the spray have got wet edges, which I'm never too keen on. So I'm just going to go with that blend, and instead of normal, I'm going to put it to difference. And you can see then the result there. So you can create all kinds of weird and wonderful colour designs using this approach. So filters, maybe distort, deform, just distort that. Again, of course, don't do the same thing every time. One thing that you really should always remember to do, move tool. Not certain if that's a bug or not, but filters, go to distort and deform. You need to have the move tool selected to add the pins. The brush tool, unfortunately, doesn't allow that, which I find slightly unusual. So you can just drag that and create all kinds of unique stretch designs like that. And that's using deform, great tool in the filters menu. But again, you can still go back here with the undo, apply, and again, it's applying the design you created, those shapes. So you can add those shapes back on again. And you can see there, a mix of colours spread across that as it goes. And of course, you can still go to filter and repeat deform. And now, of course, those brush strokes have been deformed. So you can apply it again. And add it again, like that, just in different parts. And that's the thing about it. That's the undo brush. You can apply it different areas. Again, go to filters and repeat deform to create all kinds of really intense flowing artwork like this very quickly. Also, you've got opacity, of course. So you can use difference. Quite often, opacity and blend modes together. In this case, for some weird reason, they're in a very separate place. But what you can do, you can reduce it down. So you don't have to go for full max. You can always go for difference or hard mix or add. Let's just apply it now. And this time you can see it's slightly faded, just using the opacity. And again, you can still go and apply the repeat deform to create like that. To turn an image into a pencil sketch or an ink sketch, depending on obviously on the brush you use, by using the undo brush. So I've got this image here. Now what I can do, I can delete it, but I can also just keep it there and create a new layer. So create a new layer, so layer and new layer. And as I'm going to work on this new layer anyway, that's very useful. So I've got this pixel layer. I can just use this as a start point. So just click here. And that's for the source for the undo brush. Now, of course, I don't want the background to be so strong, but I want it as a reference. That's the key thing. I mean, obviously, you don't have to have the picture at all. You could just draw, just randomly sketch over it. But what you can do, just go here and you can, let's just go and change the opacity for that. Let's just reduce it down so you can still see it. That's the key thing. So there it is. So I'm going to go for about 39. You can always delete it later, of course. But it does mean when you've got the undo brush, make certain you select the layer that you want to work with, the empty layer, and then set like the width. Now I've got 150, so you can see it. But obviously when you're actually using a pencil sketch, probably something like 6 or 7, so you don't, makes it more like a pencil sketch. But you can stop a whole load of different pencils here Also, you could, of course, use ink or any of these others. You don't have to use pencils. That's inks, engraving. All these are great brushes that you can use to draw something with. So let's just go again. Pencils. And I'm going to go with that one, 32. Set the size again, about 120 so you can see it. And then apply it. And you can apply it. Maybe you decide, I just want really to concentrate on obviously the purple there. So you just sketch very rapidly on the purple there. Maybe at different angles. So all of these ones are sketched at one angle. And then of course you could go for the green, maybe, sketch it at a different angle. Or maybe a different width. You can just change it, maybe change the setting. So it doesn't have to be the same width. Maybe go for 330 for the green. So you can just avoid going over the purple. And so on. You can create all kinds of sorts of... And of course, once you've drawn this up, you could spend ages going through this, just maybe doing an outline around some of the flowers. Select the flowers and just draw around them, and so on. Or maybe use a different brush. You don't have to use just the undo brush. You can always, of course, go here, select this brush, go and select pencil brush as well, perfectly reasonable, and then apply, and then you can add black into it. Obviously, depend. Sometimes the pencil brush is a real awkward one. You might find that it's set so low you don't see it. It's one of those ones that you really have to, I think, tweak it, depending on the size of the image. So if the image is quite large, it might be, 3,000 by 3,000. So you've got this, you can just quickly, loosely go over it like this with a black, or maybe a different brush for the black. And then, of course, again, go back to the undo and then apply again on top. So you can create different combinations of brush strokes to build up your image in many different ways. For great pencil sketches using the undo brush. The undo brush can be used with the live filter layers. Not too effective because unfortunately the underlying pixel layer which you'll be manipulating isn't changed by a live filter layer. So let's just go here. I've got this image and I'm just going to again click here, make certain you set up a source or history state for the undo. So again, go to the undo, and now I can apply the undo here. But I'm going to add a live filter layer on top of this first. So layer, and down to new live filter layer, and I'm going to distort and twirl. You could use any of the others. So twirl, applied there, and then change the angle, change the radius, and you can get some very intense designs. You can change origin point, so you can just move it around. Just say position it there and close. Now you can see here you've got the twirl. You can't do the undo to that. The undo, this bit here, cannot be applied to twirl. That's just an effect. It doesn't have any actual existence other than as an effect. But what you can do is go to the pixel layer. But if I apply the undo, it's still the same as before. So therefore there will be no difference. It won't do anything. So if I just go to undo, just apply, you see I can just apply it forever. No difference whatsoever. But what you can also do is just go to filters, and you can go down there to distort and twirl, or any of the others, deform, perfectly reasonable, but go for twirl, and again angle, and then you can get some very intense twirled effects because you're combining this twirl effect with the live twirl effect. And that does create some very extreme imagery. And apply. Now, the undo brush will work. So again, you go over here, you've got the undo, you've got your selected, and you can apply it. Now I'm using blend mode normal. I can just add it. And as I do that, you can see what happens. It comes back to that original image. So you can combine these twirled effects very quickly. Multiple twirls can be combined using this approach with the undo brush. And also, of course, you can use symmetry. So just click there, again, lock, and with symmetry, it can be applied at different angles to create, again, some unusual symmetrical designs with this. Maybe not using the twirl, but probably better in this example would be to use the mirror. So you could use the mirror effect. Unfortunately, there's no live filter layer mirror effect, but there are other wonderful live filter layers that you can use, like the sphere one. So layer, new live filter layer. You can use it or blur or distort. All these ones, or liquefy, mesh warp, very good as well. You can use the undo brush to blur edges of a shape or images or anything or type. So just go over here and I'm going to use this one, cog tool. So cog tool and apply. Unfortunately, you have to rasterize it. Now this could be filled with anything. It could be gradients, it could be filled with type. And if you apply a blur to this, you get the whole thing blurred, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do is now rasterize it. So layer and rasterize. So it's rasterized. Now I'm going to apply the blur. So filters, blur and Gaussian blur. And set it about 6 or 7. You don't want too blurry. Just make certain the edge is blurry. And apply. Make certain you click here. That's the one you want to select for the source, for the undo. And then go back to the rasterize. Then go to the undo and now select a brush. You can use any of these ones. I'm using a splatter brush. Just apply it. So undo. And as you do that, you can see what happens. It blurs the edge. It doesn't blur inside. And of course, as I say, the inside could be made up of gradients. It could be made up of type, images, or anything. So you don't want the inside to be blurred. It's just blurring around the edge. And you could, of course, choose another one, apply that. And you can do it localized. So you could just get, say, this part blurred. And you can do the same with type. So let's just go for type. Create some type. Just go with text, good old word text, and you got this design. Again, you need to rasterize it. So layer and go down to rasterize. As soon as that's rasterized, you now can blur it. So filters, go to blur and Gaussian blur, exactly the same as before. Gaussian blur, I might go for a slightly more blurred effect, like something like that, perfectly reasonable, and click apply. So once I've done that, make certain you select that source point again, just make certain it's highlighted, and then go back to rasterize. You can't go back to the type. It will not work. It will just get rid of the Gaussian blur. And again, go to the undo, select a brush, any of the brushes. I'm using sprays, but it could be any of the others, and then apply. And you can apply it around the edge. Now, of course, you might decide, well, that's a bit too big a brush, so about 40. And you can just apply it around the edge, keeping the inside of the text fairly unblurred. So it's just blurred around the edge. And of course you can apply it as much as you want. So you can really blur that there, but keep the rest of it fairly sharp as type normally is. So you can get that applied just there, around that. And you can do exactly the same with images as well. You can also use the undo brush with transformations. So you've got an image like this, and I've just opened it. Just go down here, make certain it's not locked, so you can transform it. So click there, so it's unlocked, and now you can see you've got this bounding box. And you can resize it, and also reposition it. So I'm just going to resize it, make it fairly large, so I get the face. That's the key thing, so I'm just going to drag this out, and I'm going to go with that. Now you could position it anywhere, maybe over here. So obviously you're just going to get this cut off there. But once you've done that, you can also apply effects, of course. You can go to filters, blur and Gaussian blur. Maybe go for about 9.1, 9.2. Nice blurred image there. So once you've done that, you can save that as your history state or undo state. So click here. So now you can see it's saved. Now I'm just going to go back to the original image. So just back here. And I can, of course, unlock it, still keep it unlocked. Because what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move it slightly. Just going to move it. And I'm going to resize this one. Just very subtle. But I want this face to be over slightly. But now I can use the undo brush to re-add that originally massive sized image. So let's just go over here, undo brush. With that selected, and go through and set all the various settings here. And I can also select a brush. Now you could of course do much the same if you apply it, say, as a layer. Just to add a layer, just resize a layer and then put that on top. Use blending modes and you could create much the same. But with this, with the brushes, is you've got all these brushes. You've got textures, you've got oils, you've got pencils, you've got pens. So I'm just going to go with textures. Textures are really great, so you can just select one of those. Now when I apply using the undo, I can add that design. So let's just apply it to this layer. Make certain it's selected. That's the key thing, always that it's selected, and apply. And then you can see the brush applied. Now I'm using it with glow. And you can see now you can generate a very rapid image just applied on the side. Now obviously it's very loose, and obviously you can bring in parts of the rest of the image. So it's applied like that. Maybe select a different one. So select this one. Again, resize maybe, set the width a bit higher and apply. And again, added very quickly. Again, using blend mode of glow, but you could use any of the others. So you can see you get a nice texture effect. Now you don't have to obviously apply it like that. You can just apply it just using the basic brush. So go up here, basic, and maybe glow. Let's just go that one, and I'm just going to go down here for 128. Just that one. It's a nice blurry brush, and 310, and apply it again. And then you can see the face appears there. Now you don't have to show the entire face. Maybe just show part of it, so it's just floating. And that's using the glow one, but you can use any of the others as well. So normal. Just apply it like that, very rapidly. And you can add in the face again. Now it's applied to that layer. If you don't want it to be applied to that layer, you want to apply to a different layer. Simply go to Layer and New Layer. And then you can apply it again. See if you decide, you know what, position's just not right. I've got the face, I'm happy with the face. Just apply it there. Well, you can just go to the Move tool and you can always reposition it. And you can resize it again. So you might decide, you know what, let's just move that there. Position it there. And of course you can then add effects to it as well. Filters, blur, maybe a bit more blur, motion blur. Maybe not that much motion blur, but a reasonable amount of motion blur. And click apply. And you can see you can create all kinds. And of course, you can apply it again. So once you've done that, you can move that, reposition that. You might say, oh, let's just create another layer. So again, Layer, New Layer. And do exactly the same. Just apply it to that. So again, undo brush. Just add it again. And again, you don't have to use the same blending mode. So you can see you can add it then. Now, of course, you can be more careful about that, how you apply it. Just make sure you don't bring too much of the background in. And of course, you can always, select an image that's obviously just that face. That will be even easier than trying to apply it with a background as well. And then you can reposition that. Maybe decide, resize that one. And so on. You can create all kinds of different things. And again, you've got all these other brushes. So a pencil sketch, just apply it using that. Again, undo, and you can apply it to this one or any other layer. Obviously with that one, it takes a bit more time with a pencil sketch to actually add it back on again. But you can see there, you've got the design. But now, instead of just your standard layer, you've got a pencil sketch image of that person, which obviously you can apply multiple times. Selections can be used with the undo brush as well, and they're really powerful because you can define the shape of the face or anything you've got. Obviously, if it's a cup of tea or a building or something, that will be used as a selection. If you go up here and say select and use selection from layer intensity. So I'm going to use that. But first, I'm going to define state. So make certain that's defined. So there it is. It's defined there. So select and now selection from layer intensity. So you will see now that follows the face. As I say, it could be a building. It could be any other thing, a phone, whatever. Well, you can use that with your undo brush now. So just go down here, the undo. I want to delete the image. So let's just go to layers and you've got this layer here. So delete it. So obviously now it makes it even clearer. You can see that face still there with that selection. Now I could also use some feathering as well. You've got a variety of different options. You've got feather, grow, smooth, so you can do a few more things with than that. And of course you can combine it, you can add additional parts using these tools. Okay, let's apply the brush. So undo. Now I've got this size, I'm just going to use sprays and splatter. You could use any. So I'm just going to apply spray and splatter, and as I do that, you can see what happens. Nothing, because you need a layer. Need a layer, always need a layer. Don't know why the undo brush doesn't do as most of the other brushes and basically create a layer. It doesn't seem to work that way. So layer and new layer. Now you can apply it. And you can see, as I do that, it's the image you're seeing is the underlying image. That was the one that I've saved in the history. So if you go back to history, that's what's been used there. Doesn't make any difference where the selection is. What will be used to apply will be that. But the thing is, you've got the shape. The shape of the image, that face, is always going to be in that selection, whatever you do. So I'll just apply it just like that. Now I'm using lighten there. Now I could use normal. So you could apply normal. So you could apply different layers there, and you could do it on layers as well. That's another option. So you could go maybe with multiply. You can see apply that. So there might be certain parts of the image you want to really intensify, something like that. But what you can do with selection is you can move it, as well as, of course, feather it and all those sort of things. So you can go over here. As long as you hover over it, you can see the cursor change. And then you can reposition it, but you can still see the face. Now, of course, the underlying image is still going to be what the original image was. So what you get will not be the image of the face, but you at least get the shape of the face. So whatever was there will be used. So again, undo, and you can apply it again. And you can see in this case, it was obviously a slightly dark part of the image, but it still follows the outline of that face. And again, like I say, it could be a building, it could be anything, it could be text, it could be any kind of image. It could be ones that you've applied effects to, blurs, all those sort of things can be used. So you can see then you've got this outline of the shape there, but it's still using obviously that face. And again, you do the same. So again, hover over there again, you just got to get that cursor change so I can position it there. Whatever was there, it will use that. And you can apply it again. Let's just go to the undo. You see, obviously it was again a slightly darker part of the image. And you can see all kinds. Now, of course, you can, if you want. Now, I'm always using the same there. There's that delete pixel. Maybe you had a different image there. Maybe you had a blurry image, or you had a green or blue image. So if you had here all the way back, you had a green design, you could select that and then apply that. And you get then a resulting green image there. Maybe go for lighten or screen and apply again. And you can see as you do that, you get this effect as well. And you can see, and you could do this with type. So type, you could blend and combine type using this selection approach, just by shifting the selection, follows the design. But also, of course, what you can do is you've got select, and you can invert the pixel selection. So you can do that as well. Just do that. So I've inverted the selection. Now it's all around the edge, not the face. And now what I can do, I can play, and I can use different brushes. So I can just go here. I don't have to use that one. Maybe use this one instead. And then I can go around, say, the edge. So if you want to sort of create a frame or edge effect around it, simply just go around the edge. Sort of still follows the face, but it doesn't go over what the original. Now, obviously, it's going to go over the other parts that are not selected. And you can see then you can get this sort of like very damp, mouldy like effect around the edge. So you can create all kinds of very interesting designs simply by using the selection feature, which, like all the brushes, the undo brush uses that. And again, you don't have to use normal. You could use lighten. Use one of them. Let's just go with lighten. Change the brush stroke. And you can apply that and create, again, some more interesting, unusual things. And you can always, of course, at any point, go to select and invert pixel selection, put it back to the original, and then reposition it. Just move it down, maybe down there, and then apply it again. So undo brush, apply, and you can see then you end up with obviously the image again. You can see the face there coming through, applied using blend mode of normal in this case. But whatever was actually that history source at that point. Now, sometimes you do get these weird artifacts appearing here. I'm not certain what that is. And that is how to use the selection tools. And of course, there are lots of selection tools. And of course, you can create all kinds of selections. You don't even have to create that selection using that image. It could be of a different face, which you apply on top of this one. Well, I hope you found that video of interest. Any questions about the undo brush tool, please let me know. I think it's one of the most powerful features of Affinity Photo. Well, many features are really powerful in Affinity Photo. This one is definitely worth checking out. And of course, I've only really touched probably upon the surface. Literally infinite amount of other possible designs can be created using this brush. Please subscribe to the channel. Always adding new videos all the time. Also a like or dislike. And also any other comments about Affinity Photo. Always great to hear from you. Bye.